My name is Gravity, and on this episode of the Battlefield Show, Julian and I discuss the origins and issues of Battlefield 2042. Why did it go so wrong, and what is the future? Next, is there actually a rivalry between Battlefield and Call of Duty? Is the community responsible for fanning the flames? Finally, content! What should the appropriate amount of maps be in a Battlefield game, and what should the map timeline look like? Worlds collide. Joining us this week are both hosts of The Objective, a Battlefield podcast, Dubfire33 and OnlySlightlyBad. This is the Battlefield Show.
All right, welcome back, everybody, to the Battlefield Show. I'm your host, JulianJanganoo, always with my co-host here, Gravity. Hello, hello. We're also joined by the Objective podcast with OnlySlightlyBad and Dubfire33. And I think this is the first Battlefield podcast collaboration ever in the history of mankind, probably. Well, hopefully this will keep going. It is so good to have you guys on board. How you guys doing? Dubfire, how you doing?
Doing great, man. I appreciate you having us on, man.
Yeah, hell yeah. Evan, OnlySlightlyBad, how you doing, man?
Yeah, good. Like Dub, I'm happy you guys had us on. This is going to be a fun little time.
Yeah, we got a lot of silly stuff we're going to go over across the Battlefield games, and I'm excited to have you guys on. But let's just get to know you guys a little bit better. How did you guys start the Objective, and how can people watch it? And how'd you guys meet? How'd you get it started?
Yeah. So I was inspired to start the podcast from listening to another podcast about modern warfare. You guys have probably heard, I don't know if you have heard of it. Maybe you have the Drop Shot podcast.
Drop Shot, yeah, I think I've heard of it. I've heard of it back in the day.
Razman and Tanner, and I got into I kind of got into MDub again simply because they kind of pulled me in with their whole like free game of Warzone, right? Like I hadn't even been playing a ton of PC games. I actually been playing a lot of Destiny too, and when I saw this free Warzone game, I was like, okay, free, that's cool. And then I downloaded it, and of course they're like, hey, if you buy this, if you buy Modern Warfare, you get all this stuff for Warzone. So I did it, and I was like, oh wow, I actually kind of like this. And I had been listening to Destiny podcasts, so I'm like, I'm playing Modern Warfare, I'm gonna see if I find a podcast I like. I came across the Drop Shot, and the more I listened to it, I was like, man, this sounds like fun. And like, doing a podcast, from what I understand, is not too hard to do. You get a microphone, you record yourself talking, right? So I was like, I want to do a Battlefield podcast. So that's where I came up with the idea. I was inspired, by those guys listening to their podcast. And I started doing it. And I actually did a whole bunch of episodes without Evan. Not like a whole bunch. I think about 20 or so, something like that. And about 20 or so episodes into it, I was like, I feel like I really need someone to sort of like, bounce back and forth with, to kind of talk to on this podcast. So I kind of started thinking of, I don't even know if I like asked around. I think I did ask around a little bit, like sort of in the Drop Shot community. And a couple people said, hey, we've been playing with this guy, OnlySlightlyBad. He talks about Battlefield all the time and how much he likes it. So that's how I was like, hey, dude, I heard you're like a Battlefield guy. He's like, yeah, mostly. It's like, and so I started talking to him. I was like, hey, so I'm doing this podcast. And, yeah. And so I talked, that's how I got a hold of him. And I said, yeah, dude, I'd really like to have you on. And we did one episode. And the more I got to know him, it was very serendipitous, really. We're both racing fans. We're both huge nerds. We both like bourbon, right? So it's like, this is going to work out great, so. Yeah, so that was pretty much it. That's how we kind of came up with the idea. For those of you that want to check out our podcast, of course, check us, find it on any of the podcasts. We're available on a lot of the podcast apps: iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, and pretty much any kind of podcast app you may be using. The Objective, a Battlefield podcast. We stream. We stream the recording of the episodes. I'm not going to say when, because it's like changed a lot. I've tried to stick to just Saturday nights, but it's changed so much. So, but my Twitch page is twitch.tv/dubfire33. And So, and Evan, how many episodes we've done about like 50 episodes together now, right?
Yeah, that sounds about right. We did episode 85 last night. And I joined 21, 22, somewhere in that range.
Yeah. Right. So we've been doing it together for a while now. Yeah.
So what Battlefield game was out when you guys first linked up for the Objective? You remember?
Battlefield 5.
5. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, that's pretty much when I started doing this too.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah. And the funny thing was I had avoided 5 completely, actually. Like I said, I hadn't been doing a ton of PC gaming. I've been playing Destiny 2 and some other stuff. And I liked Battlefield 1. I liked it, but it didn't really pull me in the way 4 did because of the whole setting. The Battlefield 1, the guns just got boring after a while. There were so many like different versions of the same gun and stuff. It was just didn't really pull me in. And then when I saw what was going on with 5, the whole like kind of fantasy World War II thing, and then I just and then I saw a lot of the the talk in the reviews and stuff online. I was like, wow, this is a disaster. So I actually hadn't even played it until I started doing this podcast, and then I had said, like, for posterity's sake, I should probably actually play Battlefield 5, and so I bought it and downloaded it and played it for, I think I might have put in about 30 or 40 so hours into the game before we started getting closer to 2042. I kind of fall sort of in the same category. Evan played 5 from the start.
Yeah.
So he was the unfortunate one who had to start, who played it from the start. So.
Oh man, you went through all that,
Yeah.
Evan. How was that like?
It was terrible, along with the rest of the game. It was, it was interesting. I didn't really mind the World War II setting at first, and then just, God, man, you know how many World War II games I've played in my life? It's got to do something real special, and Battlefield 5 didn't really do it for me. And then they kept changing core aspects, the time to kill debacle twice, long lacks of content, stuff like that. So I stopped playing. I played way too much of that game. I probably had 400 hours in on my Xbox before I stopped.
I was there with the beginning, since the beginning with that game too. I put like 7 months in. Like I was like, okay, that's it. I'm done with BF4. And I stopped playing BF1 when it came out because I didn't like BF1. I went back to BF4 and I was like, okay, this is the one. I'm sticking with BF5. 7 minutes in, I was like, I can't do this anymore. This is just the most ridiculous thing between all the bugs and cheaters and terrible FPS and not, just crashes and lack of content, and it's just the list goes on and on. Yeah, I completely agree with you. It was you're playing a World War II game in a world saturated by World War II games, and the thing that disappointed me about Battlefield 5 is, as a 1942 player, I literally put thousands of hours into 1942, and it was like the epitome of what a World War II game should be. And then BF5 comes out, and I'm like, this is it. This is a Battlefield World War II game. This is like the best era you can have a Battlefield game at all, forever. And they just screwed the pooch on it. There's no naval warfare. There's no boats. The aircraft sucked. It was just everything about it was just miserable.
I could go on all day about Battlefield 5 and why they went with the untold stories route, and why they went into live service, and they kind of use that as a marketing gimmick to say, like, we're going to bring you through a whole journey of World War II. And well, they got as far as the beginning of World War II and kind of stopped there, which was very disappointing and super confusing to all the fans out there that want, like, I don't know, the Eastern Front and Russia, and
Russia doesn't exist. It's in this fantasy world, man. It's like,
I don't know.
Yeah, no kidding.
We got a little bit of Japan, but yeah,
terrible knockoff maps of Battlefield 1942 maps like Twisted Steel.
Yeah.
Like it was just some really poor knockoff of Market Garden, which was a great Battlefield 1942 map. Twisted Steel was utter trash, right? Just terrible trash map. Yeah.
And it was presented so oddly too, like in the trailer. It was all in the trailer. Yes. Twisted Steel was in the trailers, but when you got into the game itself, it's like, oh, this is nothing like the trailer at all. Like,
oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, onto the main topic. I mean, a good segue into this is 2042 then came out, and we're here again. Continuing doing our podcasts and talking about Battlefield. And man, 2042 was supposed to be the modern combat kind of future of Battlefield. Like, hey, like they're gonna start setting things on track. Maybe the live service is gonna be even better, and we're gonna get more stuff. And the game launched, and it was, in my opinion, very confusing. Didn't really match up with the marketing too much. I felt like things were too clean and stuff like that. It didn't feel right. Something was off, and we started playing the beta and whatnot. And then the full game launches later on. And the main topic pretty much is, give me your top reasons, or even top 3 reasons why people were instantly just like, no, I'm not playing this game. 2042 is shit. They give their reasons. Let's start with you, Evan. Well, what instantly or could have instantly turned you off to 2042 once you started playing it?
There was a serious lack of weapons. There was 21 guns, including sidearms or something, when the game came out. And there's just clearly not enough, especially in comparison to pretty much every other game in the series. And the maps were all hot dog water. They were terrible. The reworks have made a lot of them better, but it didn't change the launch state. And just the game was clearly unfinished. All kinds of weird bugs, and you still can't always ADS if you get out of a vehicle with a scar or something with a grenade launcher on the bottom of it. It was just a bunch of really big bugs and not finished maps and a lot of things that you could really tell once you started really playing and kind of paying attention to that stuff. It was not a done game.
Yeah. No, I totally hear that. Like, when the maps came out, did they seem like it matched with the marketing? I know this is kind of like a dumb question. Like, of course it didn't, but I would like to get your take on maybe you saw it differently. Like maybe they were perhaps going in a different direction or changing things at the last minute. What do you think of the maps at launch?
They were just there was nowhere to go. Everything was so spread out. There's no cover anywhere, no clear way to make it from Alpha to Charlie to try and go cap another flag. Well, it's a kilometer away, and there's there's a tree between here and there. Good luck. Hide behind some grass. It was just it just wasn't a very good gameplay experience on a lot of those launch maps. A handful of them were, I wouldn't say okay, but they were better. Manifest was okay at launch. Orbital. I thought Orbital was okay.
But Orbital was my least favorite at launch on, actually, yeah.
Because of the beta, perhaps?
Probably, yeah. Probably, that's a good point. It probably kind of left a bad taste in my mouth. Speaking of which, kind of bouncing off of Evan bringing up the maps, I maintain, now I have no evidence to support this argument, clearly anecdotal, just all stuff, but I maintain that there was some kind, or they wanted to make Hazard Zone a real fleshed out, realized mode in this game. And that's why the maps are the way they are. Those maps were designed specifically with Hazard Zone in mind, and an actual Battlefield game was completely an afterthought for these maps. I don't see how.
Oh, this is like the BR theory, right?
This isn't the theory. This was confirmed by Tom Henderson, that they were looking at making a Battle Royale Battlefield game, and it was in development for like 12 months, 16 months, and then they shifted midway through and said, well, this is a bad idea. We should just redevelop everything and remaster it into a Battlefield game. But they couldn't do that in that short time period. So what you had is, that's why all the specialists work like specialists. I mean, they just took these abilities out of that BR game mode.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, technically, I suppose it would be an extraction royale type, mode. Not a traditional BR mode, right?
They're putting their Battlefield spin on it, right?
Exactly right. Yeah, and then they couldn't pivot, and that's what they had, and that's what we got. Yeah, I mean, yeah, my big reasons were for I think what turned off the traditional Battlefield community right away were the lack of classes, right? Not so much the specialists themselves. I think the communities mingle, right? Like I play MDub and Battlefield people play MDub, some MDub people play Battlefield. So if you had played spent any amount of time in MDub, it's like, you had the whole operators thing. So now they've brought specialists to Battlefield, definitely in a much different way with the gadgets and the specializations that the specialists had, but no classes. That was the thing I was seeing on my timeline constantly when the game came out. It's like, how do you release a Battlefield game with no classes? So I think that was the big turnoff right off the bat. The lack of content, of course, and not just the lack of weapons. There's only one. There's one small helicopter, the Little Bird, right? Battlefield 4. There was in Battlefield 3 and in Battlefield 4, or in even 1 and 5. There were the particular faction vehicles. You have a Hind and a Condor in this game at least, but you've got one Little Bird. You've got
one mobile AA. Yeah.
One AA, yeah, it's the one AA vehicle. You don't have an American and a Russian one. You've got one fucking AA vehicle. It's like, so, I mean, that was part of the whole problem with lack of content, was that thing. I don't want to get too into it. The no pat thing, and then the same no pats, either fighting for Russia or fighting for America, is like, that was a big thing for me. It's like, why aren't there just the traditional factions? Like, this is just fucking weird.
Or why didn't they separate them like they did with the Modern Warfare?
Yes.
What do we call those specialist guys? Operators. There's two different sides, right?
You always selected two. You select this operator and you select this one, and depending on which faction you get thrown into in a game, this is which operator you will use, right? Yeah, in this game it would create a whole weird balancing thing that they would have to do, right? I mean, they'd have to double the amount of specialists for it to kind of make sense.
Yeah, but you can still have the same, like, for example, this is what I initially thought, that you would have McKay USA, right? Like the one that's been marketed, and then you have Robert from freaking the Russian side, or Alexei, but they both have the grapple hook. And they both do the ADS straight. Like, it's the same thing. They're just cosmetically different.
Right.
That's what I thought that was going to happen. But I was like, oh. Then I see these videos pop up on Reddit. And there's McKay stabbing McKay. Like, while McKay is looking at them. And says, whoa, what the? Like, this is very odd. This is very odd.
Yeah. So, yeah. And I mean, of course, obviously the technical problems were a big problem. I mean, it was just, game was clearly unfinished. Lots of crashes. Just the game was just buggy as hell. Like the weapons were they didn't. They threw a bunch of damage values at the game and were like, here we go. Okay, push it out. Because I mean, certain guns that like the mini guns were just melting people. The 30 mil was just roasting people. It was crazy. Certain guns were just roasting people right off the bat. So it's like there was technical problems, there was terrible weapon balance, and and everything. So yeah. So I mean, the game had, I mean, all the reasons that we just mentioned, were not a good thing for this game from launch. Yeah.
So what do you think, Gravity? What do you think your top 3 reasons that instantly turned people off to 2042?
Performance being number one. The fact that the game ran, it didn't matter what kind of hardware you had. You were either crashing or you had stuttery frames, or practically under 90 to 86. It depends what you had. I had a 3080 going into it, and I was getting 80 frames. Like, are you kidding me? This is 5950X, and just stutters away. I mean, I think Brett pretty much, that was one of his big things. Like, if I can't even play the game, so I'm not going to make a review or talk about it or play it if I can't play it optimally or anything. I think lack of content would be number 2, and I think the maps and the classes would be number 3. I think those are the big ones.
I was looking at, like, man, pretty much, if you want to know, ladies and gentlemen who are watching this show, if you want to know what the biggest turnoffs are, I mean, my guests here in GraViTyXIII have given you excellent top reasons why people left. All you gotta do is go to top all time of r/Battlefield on Reddit, and they are the originals, the original posts from when the game first came out. They're all there. I could give you a link here, GraViTyXIII, of this is the biggest one on top all time. There you go. And this is the list of absolutely everything. Remember this post?
I remember this. Yeah.
From Twitch. Yeah. I can't speak today. From Reddit, the subreddit, the official Battlefield 2042 subreddit, where a guy pretty much just got all the core feature, a whole list that goes for pages of all the core features and everything that was stripped from 2042, and this was on pretty much every news media website out there upon 2042's release. You can see the post was made 1 year ago, and it goes through everything. If you could zoom in a little bit more on that, GraViTyXIII.
Good.
Just they go through all the core features, like, hey, like, straight off, no single player story campaign mode. And what are we hearing for the next Battlefield game? What's the first thing we're hearing?
Okay.
Oh, they're making a whole new studio.
This one is the only one. I mean, okay, so there are a couple of these that are, let's say they're nitpicking for nitpicking's sake, right? Right? You want to make a long list, sure. And deservedly this game has a long list, but there are things in here that are, wishy-washy, or like, I'm just going to include it just for the sake of, making it longer. No single-player campaign. This is one of those, give me a break. We had 4 games in a row on the Refractor engine that didn't have single player. Battlefield is not about having a single player. And most of the time in the Battlefield series, the single player is not like an exceptional experience like Call of Duty's anyway. So I could care less. 2, this game was made almost exclusively during a pandemic when they were struggling to get resources together to make a game anyway. So kudos to them for even pulling together a game. I wouldn't even want to see what kind of a game that they could have, or what kind of, either a multiplayer game or single player game if they had devoted the resources to it. So I don't mind that one at all. So I don't know how you guys feel about this game not having a single player. I just don't think that Battlefield needs one in general. The biggest problem with not having a single player game that everybody said when the game launched was, if you're not going to have a single player, you damn well better make sure your multiplayer is phenomenal, right? And then this, it's like everyone's like hoping, all the resources are on multiplayer, right? This is going to be great. And then it wasn't.
All on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Actually, someone in our community it made an interesting point about this, though. Of all the Battlefield games, though, like, with the world building they did for this game leading up to it and everything they kind of gave us that was supposed to be the setting, this would have been the one that actually probably would have had a pretty cool campaign.
Yes.
It would have benefit.
Irish returning, and you had this whole antagonist, which we still don't know anything about from that trailer on the Exodus, where the Exodus was attacked by this antagonist, right? I can't remember what Irish calls him. Rest in peace, Michael K. Williams, of course. You know what I mean? It's like this one actually probably would have actually probably been a pretty neat campaign. Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4 had like zero narrative to them whatsoever. You know what I mean? There were single player campaigns, but I don't remember the story at all. I remember 4
right.
had something to do with China in like a Chinese general or something, because the very first expansion for 4 was China Rising, which was I thought was a pretty good expansion. But like no real narrative or story to those things at all. So this one would have actually been kind of neat with the whole, well, you guys, the whole thing.
100% agree. Yeah.
It almost felt like they were kind of disappointing themselves for not doing that. Like the way they would say things on social media, and they're like kind of pushing this, like, okay, well, since we can't do it, we can integrate it into single player. And they really made that a point to where, like, when you're playing our multiplayer maps, you will see a ton of world building, single player elements woven in. As we bring new seasons, we'll be bringing more story, right? And we're like, oh, okay, so Exodus is just the beginning, right? And it's going to grow. We're going to see another trailer and somehow integrated to the next season. But they just kind of stopped. Everything stopped.
And they haven't really delivered on that either. Yeah, they are a little bit. There was some of the Easter egg stuff. There's one Easter egg thing going on now. That's kind of going to lead us into season 3, right? Yeah. So, but no, I know. Another thing on this list too, real quick, just for in the spirit of full disclosure, if any of you happen to go back and listen to any of our episodes, we did somewhat kind of gloss over some of these things when we first saw it. We talked about this list on one of our podcasts. And I want to say we were kind of in desperation mode. Like, we wanted to keep doing this podcast. So we sort of kind of went through this and like, oh, come on, guys. I said a lot of this stuff was nitpicky, and I kind of wish I hadn't at the time, but I was kind of coping a little bit. Okay. I admit it. We were coping.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Because we wanted to keep doing this podcast, but we were enjoying doing it. But like the game was in such a bad state, and it's like, but we kind of tried to gloss over it and stay somewhat positive about the state of the game, but like that quickly started to spiral into some despair and depression about the game.
Yep.
Not too long after this, but yeah. So
well, here's another one.
Exactly.
Here's another one. No vehicle exit enter animations. We didn't want that anyway. Good. Yeah, that's nitpicky because BF5, that was one of the most negative things about that game.
Right.
So yeah.
Right. I just use this list as that is what is defining 2042. Just in the ethos of like news and what people thought of the game. If you're like looking for Battlefield reviews, they would always link to the list, and then a video popped up from Battlefield 5 just showing all of the different movement features that were removed. Do you remember this video?
I actually don't remember. Oh, yes, I remember this one.
The crouch sprinting, which Evan is mauled.
Yeah, I'm still butthurt about that.
So all the attention to detail, even that came from Battlefield 1 and in Battlefield 5, they just started. It's like, hey,
this is nitpicky again.
They're just listing things that just aren't in the game, right? Or they're not building or improving on what they already had. They're kind of, the whole reinventing the wheel kind of argument comes up a lot in these kind of videos. But this is what people see. This is what people look at when they first try to figure out if they want to purchase the game or not. And they're like, what the fuck is this? Like, why would I buy a brand new game that doesn't have any of the features from my favorite game? Like, this is what just normal, customers think about, even when buying Call of Duty, they're like, what? There's expectations, and I think this is what this video is just crushing the whole narrative of releasing this new 2042 game. They're like, I guess they got us on that, and the destruction, of course, is like blatant. Especially when they, they did their first live stream. I remember for GameStop, and they were talking about this city in Hourglass that was fully destructible. It's like, oh, don't worry, destruction's there, But then when we go there, it's all like copy paste white buildings that crumble, but there's no like significance to them being destroyed or changing the map or anything that we're kind of used to, especially from the previous Battlefield game. So I'm just using these as examples of how the narrative was construed by, reviewers and regular Battlefield players, And the last one I wanted to share with you guys was this one, and it's all about the tone and the corniness. You guys remember this here? Check this out. Yeah. I mean, this one's straightforward when Gravity brings it up, but they kind of set a tone for Exodus, in the trailer and everything, and end of the world stuff, deadliest war, weather malfunctions and everything, and this popped up on Reddit, and it's basically
I remember
the stupid one-liners.
Don't be sad. But Angel, look, it gave us maybe one of the greatest Battlefield memes in history, right? The Angel memes are based. I mean, they're just some of the best memes that have ever happened, right? Don't be sad.
Yeah.
I low-key kind of miss it because it was so funny.
Low key a little bit, yeah. I mean, low key, they really should have just like changed it up. It was like 70% ridiculous and jovial in the face of like this dying world. But you did have certain specialists that said somewhat poignant and kind of somber things. Irish said certain things. Yeah. Falk said certain things. Casper had certain things that he said that somewhat fit. But then you had McKay and Angel just fucking off, right?
We're having a good time.
Angel does it again, so.
Yeah, they're like, where's the serious grittiness? Here's the thing. When they took that all away, which wasn't that long ago, at the end of round screens and whatnot, everyone's silent now. But I could have sworn there was at least a decision to improve them or change them in some way, not to completely remove them. Do you think they'll keep doing that or bring it back in some way?
I recall a post as well saying that they had fully intended to rework them, not take them away permanently.
Oh.
I guess they haven't gotten to that yet.
No, well, they haven't gotten to a lot of things yet. So
I'm still waiting for the memes Battlefield on those. But anyway, those are three little examples that I pretty much, kind of agree with. And even with your guys' stuff too. I mean, performance has got to be like the number one takeaway, the biggest turnoff to anybody playing a video game. Like, come on. I mean, it wasn't just PC too. I mean,
people were having all kinds of problems on consoles. Yeah.
Last gen?
Yeah.
Was that, I don't know, but was that even, did you guys know anything about last gen and how that ran?
No, not really.
I just remember seeing you couldn't play 100. There was no 64v64, right? So there was no 64v64. There, the map layouts were much smaller, so it didn't use as much of the maps. But I mean, I imagine, I've actually seen some videos recently. I forget what game it was. I think it was what game was it? But you're PlayStation 4 or Pro, certain games just make the fan sound like a jet engine, and I can only imagine what Battlefield 2042 was making people's PS4 Pros sound like.
Yeah, I wonder what it's like now after a year. When it comes to performance, I think it's a lot in better state, of course, but I think this is kind of what people expected at launch. When it comes to performance, it just sucks that we have to always wait a year to get a actually functioning Battlefield game. This happens a lot. It's a very noticeable trend when it comes with new Battlefield titles. And, with this new team coming up, how are they going to make this? I can't believe they're still going. I don't know what you guys think. Do you think this was the end of Battlefield after 2042? It's oh God, they're pulling the plug.
Yeah, I did think that for a while, but then with a lot of the new hires that they've made, I think they're really going to kind of try and switch tactic a little bit, bringing on Vince Zampella from Call of Duty, Titanfall, Apex. He's a juggernaut in the FPS world, so I can see them kind of changing some things. Maybe they're going to get away from Frostbite and go to Unreal or Unity or something, but
perhaps in the future, but I don't think they're doing that because I think they're already confirmed that they're upgrading the current Frostbite. We got a tweet from the dude who's doing the Halo guy. What's his name again?
Marcus Leto.
Marcus Leto.
Yeah, he said that the Frostbite needs these needed upgrades.
Yeah.
So it looks like they're not going away from Frostbite this time, but hopefully in the future, Evan, they do. I mean, at this rate, like they're kind of on a thread right now, hanging by a thread.
They do and they don't though. Like, I mean, if they can modify an upgrade that, like, I don't think this Frostbite engine needs upgrading. From what I understand, I won't nerd out too much with this. If you guys caught Crash FPS's interview with Jim Heil,
yes,
one of the podcasts, who is the EA guy, the way he describes it, it's like, okay, yeah, it is a somewhat of an antiquated idea for some of these studios to have their in-house engines anymore. When you have something like Unity and Unreal Engine there, and you can just be, and they're powerful, and you don't have to have the resources on hand. You can just do everything you need, and you can put it in that engine. But like Frostbite, if they can streamline Frostbite is notoriously hard to work with. It seems like it seems to me like they just need to, like, some really talented coders and programmers need to get in there and be like, okay, yeah, no, you're just this is doing this wrong, this is doing this wrong, we can clean this up, we can fix this up. And if they can do that, then I feel like they should just stick with the Frostbite engine. I mean, the Frostbite engine's it's a pretty good engine. It's probably just like it's almost like there's just too much there to work with, and not everyone knows how to make everything work quite right, things like that. You know what I mean? So I mean, all that aside, I've never been in the industry. Like, obviously that guy, Jim, he knew what he was talking about. So, but yeah, I don't know. I feel like if that's probably what Leto's talking about. Like, they'll get in and they'll get the things worked out with Frostbite so that when they do develop more games in it, performance will be better, things will be more streamlined, things will run better. So yeah.
I wanted to learn more about this, so I dug into like a few videos of what DICE developers thought of the engine, if I could find any interviews, and lo and behold, I found Vince Impella talking about Frostbite engine when he was doing like the Star Wars games and stuff like that, or getting into it. And he was like, who cares about the engine? Like, the engine's an engine. It really depends on the people that are working with it,
right?
Or what you want it to do. And they're like, yeah, engine choice is the least of my worries, is what I think he was trying to say in one of these interview videos. And I was like, wow, it kind of opened your mind to, how talent is so important, to getting such a complex game like Battlefield out is, yeah, it's quite an endearing task ahead. I mean, it's hard for sure.
Yeah, I'm encouraged by what they're doing, especially bringing on guys like Zampella Leto. I feel like those guys, they've got the experience of running teams, making sure teams are doing what they're doing, making decisions on, because you get, obviously as part of a development cycle, you get tons of input. It's like, hey, let's do this. Hey, let's do it this way. This should work this way. How about we do this? And we know those guys' track record. So I feel like for all the input that they're going to get, all the advice and all the things that, they're going to sort of like, yeah, I have confidence that they'll bring things together and develop a good battle. Hopefully. I don't know. I mean, knock on wood. I mean, we'll see, but like they've got the track record to prove that they, hopefully what they're going to bring us will, come on, it can't be worse than Battlefield 2042, right? Right? I mean, come on.
Hopefully they'll be more organized and prepared moving forward. They're building out new studios and putting in new technologies. I just, they want to keep this IP going, and I'm all for it. That's why I want to continue doing, continue talking about Battlefield, I think, because it would be very sad if it just went away one day. So I'm kind of happy that it's here and that they still want to keep improving on it. It's a good thing. Always a good thing in my eyes.
I don't think it'll ever go away, really. I think literally if the series died, if they shuttered DICE or told them to start working on something else, and we had an empty period for 10 years, and then I'm sure there'd be some developer that'd be like, we should reinvent the Battlefield series eventually down the road, because I mean, it's a cash cow, and then it would have nostalgia, and it'd be a huge success because you'd work on this classic IP. I think down the road, I think it's inevitable that it's going to continue.
Indeed. And in fact, Evan and I just had that conversation last night. We just had this.
Oh, nice.
We did some, we have some of our Discord members, give us questions to talk about on the podcast. One of them had something to do with this. And we said that. It's like, what video games, I was trying to think of myself, like what video games have just out and out died, right? And then it did occur to me, one of them is Medal of Honor, right? So that one gone, but right. Battlefield, Gravity, we kind of came to the conclusion that you just said. It would never completely go away. It may go away for a period of time, and then, but yeah, eventually, some developer will be like, all right, it's time for another Battlefield game. So
yeah. Also, it's unique enough in its IP and its structure that there would not be. The industry would struggle to replace the type of gameplay style that Battlefield, the niche that it has. It's not a Call of Duty. It's not a Halo. It's not an Apex. It is very uniquely its own thing, and that would sorely be missing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's move on to the next main topic here, and I'm kind of like juggling which one I should talk about first because I feel like we should just get the news out of the way of like what's coming up, what's been announced. And I think we should talk about Season 3. And Season 3 has a leaked name that just came out from our file digger, Temporal. And Season 3 apparently is going to be called Escalation. Just a generalized term, I guess, that could bring in a whole bunch of different stuff. I'm sure. Of course, Season 3 is going to be no different from the previous seasons. Based on what DICE has said, should expect the same amount of content as the previous season. So in Escalation, you should get one map. You should get at least 2 new guns, 2 new vehicles, which one of them apparently we've already seen, which is that weird tank with a rail gun on it, or shooting some sort of laser beam. It was kind of leaked out on Twitter for a second. They ended up taking that down. So at least we know one of the new vehicles is a tank. It also brings a new specialist, which we think is the dude with the remote control car.
Hale?
Do you remember his... Hale, that's it. I was going to ask you guys if you remember the name. We think it's Hale because I don't know who else it would be.
Right.
I guess Temporal's never found the name of the final one, which I think might be Oz, who is the big bad and
the antagonist.
The antagonist.
The
Exodus guy. Yeah, so I think he's probably going to be the last one. If I don't know, I'm just guessing here. But I don't know about that remote control car. I don't know what the hell it's going to do, but it sounds annoying. I don't know. But anyway, you're going to get that. Then you're going to get the vault weapons. Every patch should have a couple vault weapons, I'm sure. I'm sure you guys have been thoroughly enjoyed by all the vault weapons we have gotten so far, right, Dubfire? Right?
Oh, yeah, they're great. Yeah,
they've
awesome.
been working fantastic, very balanced.
Working,
tons of skins.
Don't worry about any cool attachments from All Out Warfare you want to put on them. It's just all the crappy attachments from Portal. You don't have to mess around with your plus system or anything, or just go grab them and start shooting, right? And then die and lose the gunfights because they suck.
And on top of that, it's going to be bring a smile to your face. The 100-tier battle pass is coming back again. Oh yes, sure. More skins, more JPEGs, all that good stuff's coming by. And then last but not least, I forgot the redesigned maps. I guess they're continuing to do that. Did you guys hear anything of like which map you think will come next? Or I don't know.
I think Manifest is supposed to come in Season 3. They announced they were redoing Manifest and Orbital at the same time, with Orbital coming in Season 2.
Interesting.
That's right. Yeah. Manifest, and then Hourglass, and then also Hourglass. So hopefully, yes, that's right. So hopefully Manifest reworks Manifest when Season 3 drops, and then an Hourglass rework midway through Season 3. So
that's going to be a hefty rework, I'm sure. if they're even going to try to do that. But
I'm trying to figure out how they rework our Manifest. I really am. Do they add more crates?
Yeah. What's the change on
containers to the map with the most containers? Right? Yeah. So
take the rain away, and you gotta have a 40 FPS boost. I mean, that'd be great.
Yes, seriously, right? The Hourglass, I feel like I'm most excited for them to redo Hourglass because the breakthrough lane for Hourglass is what's wrong with Hourglass. It's that it needs to. I feel like it needs to start in the downtown. It needs to just like screw that like little kind of plaza and then all the just like copy paste little town.
The town, yeah.
Like kind of reverse. Start in downtown. Work your way like kind of down that road because the stadium absolutely needs to get involved in breakthrough.
That's exactly literally what I said last week on the show, wasn't it, Julian? With the stadium.
Yeah, dude, what's up with the no love with the stadium, man?
Yeah.
It's a perfect TDM map. What the hell?
TDM, there's 3 different levels. There's a whole you can access the actual outside stadium area. There's the roof. There's the outside area of it. I know. Yeah, it's like so. I'm hoping they're on that wavelength, and it's gonna start from that downtown area and work its way and end at the stadium area because I think that would actually be a lot of fun. So,
yeah, and like I said, the last but not least is the class system, which will be near the end or the tail end of season 3, so it won't be right away when we first get. So don't expect the class system all right away. It looks like they're still gonna need some time to do it, but they're sticking to the end of season 3 to release that as one of their goals. So let's just get this out of the way. Class system, you guys learned a little bit about it, right? Evan, do you have any thoughts on what they're going to do with the class system and, bringing on these, what they call it? Not persistent, proficiency. Weapon proficiencies was just announced too. Give us your take on that. What do you think?
Overall, it will probably be fairly good for the game, for how the game plays. Because as it sits right now, people don't play a medic. You never get a res, ever. If nothing else, I think more people will play medic at that point in time. Personally, I don't really care, though. I could take the specialist. I could take the class system. I'm just going to play the game and try and have some fun with it. So I don't really care one way or the other. I'm sure it will be better for the game health, if nothing else. The weapon proficiencies, I think it was Total FPS gave a example on Twitter, and it is the most useless thing that he could have given. It was Recon class can hold their breath longer with sniper rifles. I've got over 2,000 kills with a sniper rifle in this game. I don't think I've ever once held my breath. So I think the
exactly.
The weapon proficiencies will be probably pretty lame, and they're not going to adjust too much of how the game plays, but it will be interesting to see how that they play out with that. Either way, maybe the other weapons have a better proficiency than holding your breath that you don't do with a sniper rifle.
So I guess this is their way of not completely, kind of catering to both sides of the arguments. Do you lock away all the primary weapons to a specific class? Do you have a mix like they did in Battlefield 3 and 4, where you have carbines for everybody or stuff like that, or shotgun utilities for all classes, or just how they're doing now in 2042, leaving it all up for everybody to play any primary weapon. It looks like they're trying to do this. Is this the right move, you think? Dubfire, what do you think about the class system proficiency stuff?
It's the right move. I kind of wasn't on board with it at first, and not because I don't think they're not going to restrict the weapons. And so I felt like, well, if they're not going to restrict the weapons, what are we doing with the classes? It's like, you kind of can create your own class, right, with the loadout system if you want. You can name them the classes, and you can have ones where you've got you've got your repair tool, you've got one where you just have your medic bag, you got one where you got the recoilless, whatever. But actually, DZ Kinetic, shout out to DZ to Kinetic for being on the pod not a couple pods ago. The reason I had him on, we got into a little Twitter discussion about that, and he made a point, and it was a very good point. And like having the classes there do put it in front of the player. And now that they're in front of the player, there's a better chance you're going to get someone who's going to take the engineer class. And now the engineer class likely has the repair tool attached to it, right? Automatically. So now you might just actually get some rando repairs in this game, which are even more non-existent than reses. That's even more non-existent than reses in this game. I can remember plenty of times in Battlefield 4 where it was either myself or someone was running a repair tool because they knew that on certain maps, like, hey, if this guy's pushing in a tank in the right spot, I want to help keep it alive. I'm going to res him, or I'm going to repair him, right? So, like, the weapon proficiency stuff. I don't know. It'll be an added little element to the game, but like getting the class system into the game is a good thing. That for the reason I just said, it puts it right in front of people. So now, hopefully you get more meds, you get more reses, you get more repairs, stuff like that. So,
what do you think, Grav?
I think he's right. I don't. My indication is that the class system really isn't going to change that much. I don't really. I think it's a little late as far as restricting guns go. I just think that it was the best they could do because there's not enough guns in the game to restrict weapons to classes. There isn't. So you toe that middle line and you make up some like Kevin said, you make up some little thing like you can hold your breath longer, but even it's kind of pointless. Whatever, I don't care. That's not the end of the world. It's still gonna play the specialist I want. That's gonna be the most effective to my playstyle. But you are right about the repairs. Oddly enough, was it this week or the past week that the Battle Pass had the requirement that you had to have up to 300 repair points to complete the thing? And people were swarming tanks like they've never done before just to get those repair points. I'm like, oh my god, these are like bees to honey or something. It's crazy.
That's funny.
It'll be more of a natural thing, I guess, as classes are explained. Hopefully, they're explained quite well in the UI, because they've been having some UI issues. Hopefully this will be pretty straightforward as to what your specialist does or what your role is now, because people are gonna get upset. Normies are gonna be like, yo, what the fuck, like, why can't I play with my rocket on McKay?
Right.
Why can't I do this? Like, you just see that on day one, like, oh, this doesn't work. This is trash. I hate
100%. You're gonna see threads and tweets about it. Yeah, just because people won't have a clue. Yeah.
Why can't I be RAW AA?
Yeah, right. People get used to things, and that's why this is probably such a tough decision to make. Is you need to really set the standard when the game first comes out. And when you start taking things away, it's like taking candy from a baby. They're going to cry about it, man. It's like, hey, come on. And I always been wondering about, like, oh, man, what about when the next game comes out and there's no grapple hook, right? Or, like, there's no med pen or something. Yes, people are going to be, like, trashing the new Battlefield game because they don't have all these specialist gears. Like, well, you said you didn't want them. Like, DICE is just like battling it out with everybody. It's like, well, whose fault is all this anyway?
Yeah, really. That's actually an interesting point. Like, do they almost kind of like have to keep some of these gadgets in the next game?
Yeah, especially the wingsuit. I mean,
wingsuit, grappling hook,
wingsuit and grappling hook for sure.
That's all people play. No. I mean, most of the. What do you think?
Okay, so here's what I would do. I would take away them of the ability for those kind of like wingsuits and grappling hooks from the classes, from specialists whatsoever, and I would make them pick up items on the map on the BF4. So you would go to certain sections of the map and there'd be a kit or something like that, and maybe you can up to 5 or whatever can pick it up at a time, and then you can just use it like normal. But but they wouldn't be like a so this way anybody could use them as long as you can find them on the map.
Yeah, but there'll be a lot, right? So like 5 or 6 people can do them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so it won't be like exclusive, like the Battlefield 1 mega warrior specialist.
Right. But the biggest problem with the grappling
one person.
The biggest problem with the grappling hook is it makes map design incredibly difficult because you take it's if you give somebody the advantage of high ground advantage where in a place where they're not supposed to be or they cannot get killed, you completely ruin a whole section of the map. It's terrible with that. Yeah.
I don't know.
So probably limit that.
No, you make a good point. I mean, now that I think about it, like I like playing McKay, but I don't play McKay often. I generally tend to play Rao a lot.
Okay.
Or Irish or Falk. So it's like, yeah, okay. So those, but like the Sirek gun, and yeah, I mean, I feel like those. I mean, but the Sirek gun could still just be a gadget like any medic could use in the future games, right? Yeah. So it's like. No, you're right. I mean, but yes, you make a point, Julian. Like, there are going to be like McKay mains who are going to be so mauled when there's just no grappling at hand.
I'm going to be like, oh, well, that's a bummer. But imagine if I had a grapple hook in like Battlefield 2. Like, I would be the king of like every map.
It's funny because in Special Forces you did have a grappling hook, but you would,
but it was slow. Like you have to like toss it up.
Oh no, it's not super effective. No.
That's what I'm saying.
If there's one thing that I would take from this game to the next game, it's the cut your parachute and redeploy another one. I can't go back to playing other Battlefield games and like, oh my god, I pulled my parachute early. I guess I'll just parachute down for 30 seconds. I need to cut it. I think that's fantastic, and that needs to stay. If there's one thing that's carrying over, I want that.
Yeah, I agree 100% on that one.
Well, I think we covered that pretty quickly, and thank you guys for your input on. So season 3, escalation, I guess is what they're going to be calling it, and that should be coming up at the end of the month, I believe. Hopefully, there's no delays like previous seasons. They usually have a countdown timer, and then the day after, you just have the new one, right? You have the new season, everything pops up. So hopefully it's a clean transition into season 3, and we get a whole bunch of new stuff. I think they're just going to start with the season 3 content, and then start working in like vault weapons, and hopefully, the remake of Manifest, if that's, I think, what is going to be the next map. That's going to be interesting. I don't know what. We can have a whole discussion on that, of what they're going to do to change. Yeah, go for it.
Oh, well, yeah. Okay, so just something I thought of off the top of my head. Since you said just kind of bring up anything. Is there actually a rivalry? This is kind of a weird question. I mean, like, are there, rivalries are always kind of a very subjective sort of thing. Sometimes they are somewhat objective, depending on what rivalry you're talking about. But anyway, is there actually a rivalry between Battlefield and Call of Duty?
So I would say it's community-based and not developer-based. Maybe not officially. Maybe not between studios. But I think it's all... It has to do with the fact that they literally launched like the same year. I mean, the Call of Duty 1, the original 1942, and I played them both back then. And I think based on the way that they launch and their launch cycles, I think that's just a community fanboy thing over the years that I don't think there's a whole straight on rivalry, especially not between the developers, for sure.
No, yeah. I don't, yeah. I mean, but like that's kind of what I was talking about. It was more like between the community. I suppose you're right. Like, but if you ask the certain community members, it's like there definitely is, right? Like, oh, fucking COD fanboy, oh, fucking, you suck at COD, so go play Battlefield, that kind of thing. So I don't know. But I just always find it interesting whenever that kind of stuff comes up. It definitely doesn't come up as much as it used to. I think, Battlefield. What was the big Battlefield? What Battlefield would have been like sort of the latest Battlefield when MW2
was that? I think was that 2019 or when did that come out? What year?
No, I'm sorry.
You mean the original?
The original MW2.
What year was that? Do you remember that?
What year was
2009.
2009? That would have been Bad Company. Bad Company 2 would have been that year or the year after. So yeah, that's close.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I always thought that was kind of a fun, bring it up sometimes. Just but it's more. You're right. It's more of just kind of a between fanboy community type stuff, right?
What I don't like is the community insisting that one needs to be like the other. I hate that. Yes. Battlefield players going, we should take all the Battlefield. You should take all the vehicles out of Battlefield. Well, then you're not playing Battlefield. You should go play Call of Duty. Yeah, it's like I hate that. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and you can notice the industry trends that Battlefield seems to be accused of chasing, and I'm pretty convinced that they're chasing trends is what makes money, right? Or what they think makes money, and they just need to watch that a little bit more. Did it work out for them in 2042? I don't think it did. Chasing these trends. Maybe they should reconsider how they structure a Battlefield game for in the future. But I mean, Battlefield and Call of Duty are the juggernauts of FPS, and there's always going to be a rivalry between communities. And I think that's where I agree with you guys. I think that's where it predominantly is. I think the developers, I mean, even recently you saw Battlefield developers congratulating the Call of Duty ones for releasing the brand new Modern Warfare 2 and all that stuff. I'm sure they have mutual respect, and I'm sure some of them even worked for each developer company. So
right
at one point, I would think and we got some Call of Duty influenced people now working and being in leadership roles for new Battlefield games coming on up. So there's going to be a lot of influence there. But yeah, they try to just bounce off of each other, but they got to keep their image. And I think Call of Duty is really winning in that aspect of, keeping what fans expect. And every time Battlefield comes out, it's the whole reinventing the wheel, conversation comes up again. Yeah. I was like, oh, well, I mean, what's a good example of that? The class system, right? It's like, why? That's like the very definition of Battlefield. You're like, why you just take that away? You're reinventing the wheel. And
at some point, it became a discussion of probably around BF3 and BF4, probably, or around BF1 maybe, where Call of Duty kept generating. They build their game and they release essentially more or less the same game that they've been releasing over time, and this gets to the whole thing of improved iterations from the Call of Duty's series of you have your gameplay that's normal that you expect to have in a Call of Duty game, and maybe it's a little buggy, maybe it's a little different, but it's the same feeling you've experienced that you like, and you like the series, so that's what you go for. Whereas Battlefield, we have this series, we have a problem where there's no iteration. It's complete, like you said, reinvention of the wheel, but there's a feeling over time that the studio, specifically DICE, has turned from more game development to a form of games as an art form, where we have to have the best audio, the best visuals, and the best level art type of thing, rather than the best gameplay mechanics that we can have, and the best immersion and atmosphere. This falls in line with a lot of BF1 and BF5. Everything needs to have an animation. You need to feel like you're in a story, and that's not what players want.
You're getting in and out of that tank.
Yeah,
or in and out.
Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
Like you need to feel like you're picking up everything. It's just like no, immersion. And there's this, right. And I don't think that's. And truly, when you talk to most Battlefield fans, you get to this Battlefield 1 just seems to be the point where everything just started to go downhill. It's not that BF1 wasn't a great game; it just had a different feel. And then you go on the steep drop off the cliff with BF5 in 2042. That just doesn't feel right. And if they would just get back to the basic gameplay elements that made at least up to BF4 good, then maybe they can get their stride back.
Yeah, we'll see. That's talks about that. Hopefully Ridgeline. Well, Ridgeline Studios is doing the
campaign.
They're doing the campaign, right? Yeah. So,
and that's all we know about the next Battlefield game too.
That's true.
There's going to be a campaign, so that they're trying to quell that fire, from, hey, are they going to have a single player campaign or not? And they're just outright saying, oh, of course we are. Like,
Yep.
Just going to put that to rest right away. They don't want that bad press going forward. So we'll see. I don't know. I understand the meaning of bringing in a single player campaign because it brings more value to the game. Despite saying, the argument of, forget single player, put more devotion to multiplayer. It really didn't hit this time around for 2042. So I think let's just put that to the side and make a campaign, get that story going. I don't know what they're going to do with specialists, but they're probably going to keep them and go from there. So, yeah, I don't know. It's just, it's better to have it than not. All right. Especially with game prices going up and everything. Imagine paying $70 for no campaign in Call of Duty. Like, I'm sure you'll piss off a hell of people, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I think a lot of people would. Yeah, you talk to a certain group of people. It seems like specifically like, sort of the people that listen to the Drop Shot and the hosts, Raz and Tanner, that they don't give a flying fuck about the campaign. I particularly didn't really either. But there's probably a large contingent of Call of Duty players who that's, even though the multiplayer obviously has taken strides, in becoming the core experience of a Call of Duty game. But there's probably a large contingent of people who they want to experience that cool campaign, that immersion of the campaign and playing those characters and the different missions, the AC-130, the sniper missions, the stealth mission, all that stuff. Right. So, yeah.
I think in the end, it just comes down to the gameplay style that you enjoy. And with Battlefield, it's just a much more complex game to create. So when a new Battlefield game comes out, we've had this increasing launch trouble where the game is either more and more unfinished, more and more buggy, and the game just seems like more and more of a disappointment every single launch now. And that's completely disheartening the community and being like, well, yeah, of course people are going to go play Call of Duty instead, or of course the Call of Duty is the competitors winning. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. DICE is very ambitious. They will come up with tons of ideas and think of something crazy, and just like the tornado is a great example of how they were just, all the developers were just gushing over that because they thought it was so impossible. Right, to do something like that in a game like 2042, and then when they were able to figure that out and put it in to their liking, but then when players play their fantastic creation, it's like kind of set to the side. And I can see how that, as a developer, like putting all that time and effort into creating something like that, it must be a huge bummer. It's like, it's more of an annoyance than, anything else.
Yeah, and it's funny too because there's zero of that on exposure, right? The first new map that we got, there's no EMP storm, there's no tornado, nothing.
Right.
But then they did bring it in to Stranded. And
we got two of them now.
Two of them on Stranded, yeah. But I don't know, it works on Stranded. To a certain degree, it works to a certain degree whenever it does pop up. It's like they're there, and it's I don't know. Yeah, I get what a lot of people say about it. It's like why are you doing this to us? It's like we want to just fucking play the game. We don't want this. We don't want to get third partied by a tornado.
Well, players and critics alike use that as an excuse of, oh, you put too much time into creating this thing that didn't really matter. It doesn't change gameplay at all, and it's just it's kind of silly. You should have put more time into this or that.
Right? Yeah.
So that comes up a lot. So it must not be a good feeling as being a developer that
probably not.
Put their heart and soul into something as just insane. Because I've never seen a tornado of this quality before in a video game. It's just I don't know if it was implemented correctly for the right game. I don't know.
It looks pretty badass in the trailer, that's for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
I think people just also completely overestimated the effect it was going to have. Like, people just expected it was going to tear through a city and there would be levolution and windows popping out and chunks of buildings getting ripped apart, and it wasn't.
Yeah.
And also, I didn't think everybody would. I think most people thought, oh, well, it's not going to be on every map, right? And then it was, and it's like, oh, okay, this is old now. Yeah, right. Yeah.
The brutal expectations. I think that's what they were thinking.
Oh boy,
from us.
The brutal expectations. Whew, that was a fun one. That was a fun tweet.
Yeah.
Oh man, I just hope for the, if they're going to continue the live service for the next Battlefield game, which I'm sure they will, I kind of like what they're doing for 2042 to an extent. It's just the maps and the amount of content for that, for like the guns and whatnot, is just too low. But if they weren't redoing maps and they were giving us new maps instead, I think I would be satisfied enough. If there were 3 maps in a season that were all brand new, I think that would be okay. What do you guys think?
I think that's acceptable. Yeah.
I think that's what they'll end up doing.
No.
What do you? No, they won't. Evan. Well, I mean, like Evan.
Even the new Battlefield.
The new Battlefield. My gut is like, please just learn your lesson. Go back to the premium model. Drop me 4 maps every 6 months or whatever. I don't. That's all I want, right? My gut tells me that. Again, they were like, oh, it's the scale, right? It takes so long to design a map. Well, what the hell happened with BF1, right? It's not like BF1 was maps were any less pretty on a completely separate engine. In fact, they're more pretty and more detailed than BF5 and 2042 anyway. So, and you were able to get me 5 of those maps for the first DLC pack after 8 months. Like,
true, yeah. Well, I don't know. Like, I don't know if we heard the reports. A year ago or so. They've lost a lot of people at DICE. There's been an exodus, no pun intended, of some of senior talent types and just other, and I don't know, it just sounds like they've kind of just, a lot of people have kind of left the company. So yeah, I don't know, it's maybe it's just a manpower thing, but I mean, it wouldn't seem like it. I mean, there's like 7 different studios now, right, that are kind of part of this, so it wouldn't seem like it's a manpower thing. But yeah, I don't know, man, we've talked about this a lot on our podcast too. Like, it's just the live service thing. It's just it's the landscape of gaming right now, and it's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. It's certainly it's fitting in place of, as like you mentioned, a premium type thing, or the expansion packs. Yeah, I don't know. It's good. I feel like we'll see a change in the way this stuff works down the road. We're already seeing a battle passes working differently.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys have ever played Fortnite, but Fortnite has got a very strange battle pass system.
Explain. What do you mean?
You've got this, like, you've got these tiers of content to choose from. So in the tier 1, it's just, you go to the battle pass and you see this block of content, and there'll be a character model, there'll be a sticker, there'll be an animation, a parachute, whatever, and it's all kind of, it's all there drawn out in this block, and but each one of them costs a different amount of like battle pass points, right? So, like, the character might be, I can't remember like the amounts exactly, but the character might be 50, the sticker's like 10, the array is like 5. However, you don't get access to the next tier of content in the battle pass until you have spent a certain amount of points on this particular tier, right? So it's like so like you have to spend like up to like, and you get, and you're just accruing like battle pass coins, so to speak. So you accrue them, and then you have to spend 300 on this tier 1, and you haven't even gotten everything in that tier. You've just selected a few things in there, spent 300 coins. Once you've spent 300 of those coins, then you've now gained access to the next tier of content that is available to you, and then so on and so on, and then to just get to the net, you have to spend so many of them in that tier, and then so it's like we've already seen it. So clearly, like, people are kind of starting to think differently as to how they do battle passes. The Battlefield battle pass is a different one. It's not just a traditional gain XP, move on to the next tier, right? You're accruing these, these dots. We're getting the what did you call them, Evan? The
battlefield balls.
The battlefield balls. That's right.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you're getting you're progressing your battle pass through earning the battle pass balls, which they did the traditional. You can do the traditional way and just gaining experience, and for whatever amount of experience you've gained translate into so many balls. But then of course you get extra ones by completing the battle pass missions, right? So it's like,
right.
We've seen the way these battle pass things have evolved over time. So I feel like this live service thing is going to evolve over time too, hopefully into something that actually services the consumer better than it does now. We'll see. I don't know, but so it's that's down the road. But I mean, I know what you're saying, Gravity, right? I mean, it's like I long for the days of just game comes out, expansions coming out, then here's the next, and then when the next expansion's coming out, 4 maps, this many weapons, boom, they're there. Like, you don't have to earn them. It's kind of insane to me that the weapons that they add to the game are in the battle pass. I have to do things to earn it. Like, I have to make I don't know. It's just, So
I think part of my disagreement with it is it's not for the sake of content. It's the sake that maybe it's a different view of what makes the game work and what's popular. I firmly believe that map variety and map quantity are keys to keeping the game's longevity going. Like, if I'm playing the same 8 maps, I'm going to get bored of that game very, very quickly. Whereas if I'm playing a game like BF1 and there's like 25 maps towards the end, like, every game experience is going to be new. I can vote for a map that I don't want or I do want, and it'll keep that content generating. And releasing one map per 4 months, it's not. I don't disagree. It's not that I dislike getting a new map. It's if I'm getting one new map at a time, I'm only consistently playing that one map for like a month, right? And I'm gonna get bored of, and it's gonna bore me to death, and I'm gonna go play another game because I don't want to play it, exposure again and again and again.
Yeah. There's no question. Yeah, the variety of maps is something that will absolutely help longevity for a game. COD obviously does that. There's always lots of different, and they add maps. They add maps at a pretty good clip, even in the days, these days of live service. They add maps at a pretty good clip. Yeah, this is frustrating getting just the one map per season. I would like it. It would be great if they could add 3 maps. I mean, at least they've been mixing in No Shark Canals and Caspian Border, right? Like in the different game modes in 2142.
Yeah, luckily we have that.
Right, exactly. So
and again, this goes back to the premium model versus the live service, where you pay for the game $60, $70, and then you've got everything's free, right? Whereas the premium model, it's like every, you'd pay that, or you'd pay $15 for the pack of 4 maps, and that would cover the cost of your developer making those maps throughout the year. It's just, you'd have a greater chance of map variety every 4 months, and it'd get you to play the game for longer spurts over time. And I just feel like that's the way that it should be done, because that's what's going to keep me coming back.
Well, if they are going to reinvent the wheel some way, it's live service. Like, someone's got to have to reinvent this shit.
Yeah.
One map every 3 months is not even working for me. And they can do all this, remaking of maps as to, cover for lost content, or these specific playlists that include different maps, or including vault weapons as more content. But you ain't fooling nobody. We're still waiting for like new stuff, from the new game you release. So yeah, that's why I hope for in the future is that if they continue to give us this kind of content for each season, but instead of the reworked maps, there were new maps, I think that would be fine. I don't know. Maybe I'll complain about the battle pass, but that's all freaking cosmetic stuff and stickers, and like, who gives a shit, right?
Yeah. I know.
So that's just that. But if we get new weapons and whatnot, I'm always down. That's why I continue to play Battlefield. They're bringing in new weapons, the vault weapons, regardless if they're good or not. I can still grind them, and I enjoy that quite a bit. So I guess I'm very easy to please when it comes to content. It's like, just give me more guns, and I'll be good. But one map is no good.
I think maybe it's just a product of the time. You're right. Maybe I'm just, don't get me wrong, I'm still gonna fight for the premium model for till the end of days. But if it's inevitable that live service is the way, then they've got to make a change to have more maps, and not just guns. Just you got to have more maps. If you were to launch a season and just say every 3 to 4 months you drop 3 maps, even if it's 2 at launch of the season and then an extra one midway through the season, that would satiate so many complaints and create so much much more map diversity that would keep people playing throughout the season.
Yep. Yeah.
Right. Just like the remakes, just like that.
Yeah.
And oh my god, mid-season update. Guess what? New map. Like, people freak out. It'll be awesome. It would be awesome. But right now we're just like, oh, it's an Orbital remake. I was like, oh, okay. That's what they can do right now in terms of budget constraints, probably, and
I guess
everything else. I don't know what the hell's going on over there, but that's what we have to stick with. But anyway, guys, I think we went on long enough. I have an idea, actually, and I'll probably talk about this after the recording. But thank you guys so much for coming on. I think we can wrap it up there. Please go check out the Objective podcast, the Objective, a Battlefield podcast.
Yeah.
You go check that out on every podcast platform that I can think of. I did an easy search on Spotify, and you can find it there. And I believe Dubfire, you do it on your Twitch channel live sometimes, correct?
Yeah, we do every episode live. Yeah, kind of very much like I said in the vein of the Drop Shot guys. Yeah, it's I like doing Twitch. Like I once I started doing it, I really like doing the whole broadcast thing. It's kind of fun, and we've got a pretty good little group of regulars that come by the Twitch stream and hang out and talk in the chat and stuff. So yeah, twitch.tv/dubfire33. We will generally record every Saturday night, right? Generally.
Okay.
Sometimes it changes. Follow me on Twitter @dubfire33. If the night is going to change that we do it, I will generally tweet about it. So come by and check us out sometime.
For sure. And Slightly Bad, you're always going to be with them?
Yeah, that's the plan at least.
That's awesome. I'll be sure to go check that out for sure. But yeah, anyway, thanks for being on the Battlefield show. Expect we should be launching this, I think, next week sometime.
Some point this week,
Yeah, sometime this week. So yeah. Appreciate you guys. We'll talk with you soon. And that's it. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a good night.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Bye-bye.
That was a lot of fun. That was a good time.
Yep. Thanks,
All right, guys.